Hey, I'm Nate with the Pulsecast, and we're giving you a front row seat to the wellness and longevity new horizon. We've been interviewing experts in conferences, in home offices, in cutting edge rehab facilities. And now we're in a living room, which makes total sense for today's guest on the Pulsecast. He's one of the most down-to-earth experts you'll ever meet. He's a brilliant life optimization coach, a health optimization coach, and he's a dear friend to Pulse PEMF. Josh Holland, thank you so much for coming back on the Pulsecast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. And what an intro, by the way. I love your energy. And I like the point in which you said down to earth. And I think you're saying that because we are sitting closer to the ground.
That was definitely in mind, yes.
Awesome.
I didn't know the couch was going to be so low.
Same.
But a living room is the perfect setting, I think, especially since I got a whole day with you yesterday. And I'm so excited to dive into some of the topics that we were even starting to broach the subject of yesterday. But in our first interview, which we did with you last year, it was at the Biohack conference.
I love that, by the way.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
Lots going on. Not like this living room setting. There was a lot of distractions, a lot of energy. It was great. But we didn't get to dive too much into your backstory about how you became a respected voice in the wellness industry. So can you share how this all began? I would like to hear your origin story.
All right. How much time do we have?
Just flow and we'll go with it.
Got it. Okay. I will do my best to just talk, and then we can obviously sort of go down different rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Because I think my life and most of our lives are sort of comprised of a bunch of different rabbit holes, right?
Yeah.
And different decisions we make sort of create this experience that we call life. And so my journey starts when I first recall basically being raised in martial arts. And I say that because my family, my mom and dad, they had a karate business, a martial arts business in the small town of Chandler, Oklahoma, where I'm from. And it was really awesome because growing up, having my father, he was the chief of police in our hometown. He was on the EMT team. He was a storm chaser. He was a carpenter. He was a massage therapist. He did so many things.
Wow.
And my mom was also very talented in that she was a mother, right? Like raising two young rambunctious boys, and me and my brother. And she was the head of the gospel team, the choir at church. And she had many different types of jobs, and together we formed this amazing family unit that was sort of like the foundation was really like martial arts.
Okay.
And so myself, my brother, my mom, my dad, we were all in martial arts. It was the family business. It was the thing that we all did.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. And if you can imagine, I started when I was 4 years old. My brother was 5. And you might think like, okay, but how much can a 4-year-old really do? Because I currently have a 4-year-old daughter, I have a 7-year-old son. And it's interesting because if I look back on my life, my journey, me starting at 4, trying to imagine my daughter starting martial arts at 4, it's night and day. It's night and day.
Yeah.
We didn't have all the distractions that kids have nowadays.
Very true.
From the amount of people that we interact with, the different technologies and things like that. But I grew up in martial arts. It was what allowed me to understand where I can draw my energy from, not only within the Eastern medicine philosophy, right? The Eastern philosophies, chi energy and things like that, but also drawing in on the faith around going to church. My mom and dad were so much a part of the Christian faith. And so my dad was a pastor. And I say was because my father passed away a couple years ago. But he was a big part of the church community. My mom also was a big part of the church community. Therefore, my brother and I had to we had to believe, right? But then as we started to get older and started to understand more about life and spirituality, we started to question things a little bit more. And I think it's healthy to have a healthy amount of skepticism in the world in general.
You have to walk your own path.
That's right. And when you say that, it makes me think of my podcast, Simply Walk the Talk, because we have to walk our own paths. And so having blind faith is is okay within certain parameters. But I think in order for me to better explain what it is, the walk that I'm going on, I need to better understand what it is that I'm doing and what I truly believe. And so if you can kind of take that, like an example for that in martial arts was, like being able to break a board or to break a concrete brick. And you think like, okay, but you're 4 years old. You're not breaking boards. You're not breaking bricks, but we certainly were. And then I think fast forward to when I'm a little bit older, because we don't want Child Protective Services knocking on our doors. But, I used to start doing things like my father would lie me on a bed of nails in which I had to build on my own, because part of the process of understanding all of these components was building my own bed, right? Lying in my own bed.
This sounds like a superhero origin story.
Oh, it's
like,
crazy.
Your dad's a cop and wears many hats. Your mom is wearing many hats. You're learning martial arts at a young age, sleeping on a bed of nails. You sound like a superhero.
It was crazy. Now, I will say I wasn't sleeping on those beds of nails, but it was a part of the competitions, because we used to go to a lot of karate tournaments when we were younger. And sometimes you want to try to wow the judges and the crowd, right?
For sure.
And so what's a really cool way to do that? Well, if you've got wooden boards that you break, you can break wooden boards, or you can set them on fire and break them. Looked cool. So we did that a lot. And then instead of just breaking bricks with your hands or whatever, why not lie on a bed of nails? First, I would take off my karate gi, take off my top. We would have an apple, and we would drop the apple into the nails so you could see that it was very sharp nails. And then you take the apple off, and immediately I lie on it. And then my dad would put 4, 5, 6 bricks, concrete bricks on top of me, and then he would smash those bricks on top of me while I'm lying on the bed of nails, right?
How old were you?
I think when I first did that, I don't even think I was a black belt yet. So I got my black belt when I was 12. So it was younger than 12. I think I was maybe 10 or 11.
Wow.
And that is an interesting thing. And this is an interesting segue rabbit hole. But like, I'm saying all that to say, I had to have faith in that the nails wouldn't puncture me and kill me, right?
Right.
But then when I started asking the questions around it, it was beyond the faith in that it would do it. I started to learn geometry and physics and science and math and, being able to build these equations around better understanding why it won't puncture me, right? Because the closer that you have the nails together, you have the least amount of force or least amount of pressure or weight on each individual nail. So then I'm like, aha, now I can play with that a little bit more. And so in today's world, like I use these things called nail boards for your feet. So I stand on nail boards. Now, the average person who doesn't know what I know and doesn't have this background of me lying on a bed of nails and having bricks broken over them, the average person would go, what are you doing? You're standing on nails, it's gonna puncture you. When I first got the nail boards for my feet, I immediately stood on it because I know the components of it. I know how it works. It's not magic. It's physics. It's science, or it's faith, right?
Have you ever shared this on any interview before? 'Cause I don't think I've ever heard this story before.
I may have once before.
Okay.
Yeah. So
This is wild.
But it's that is part of what I did. So then I'm like, okay, if you can understand that, you start to understand how to breathe and how to maybe take a punch or take a blow, or you learn how to harness your own power so that you can give the most at the opportune times. And so that was my martial arts background. I mean, that's what kind of got me from where I was then to where I am today. Built a strong foundation on all that. So pun intended, right? Building a strong foundation, learning where I can draw my own energy, my own power. And then once I got my black belt, I was like, ooh, I want to do more in life. I want to explore, because if I can master, so to speak, martial arts, then what else could I really work on? And so I got a chance to play basketball and run track, and I I knew by the age of 12 that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, like my father, like my parents. And so I went to an entrepreneurship camp at a local university in Oklahoma at 12 years old.
Wow.
And I don't know if I still have them, but I probably do in my house in Oklahoma. But where we grew up. But I believe I still have those. What is it called whenever you're writing purchase orders? Like I used to have like a booklet that I would keep purchase orders, and so I would do woodworking, or I would do leather working, or I would do tie-dye t-shirts, or I would make moccasins. Like I made all these things when I was really young, 12.
Wow.
And it wasn't necessarily because I was just interested in it and I had all the time in the world to do it, but I literally was making money. That was how, like if I wanted a new pair of basketball shoes to play in, we didn't have the funds to be able to go and get it. I heard you talking about a little bit about that yesterday.
Yep.
About your childhood.
Yep.
I didn't say anything about mine because I knew we'd probably talk about that here. But
Yep.
I grew up poor.
Yep.
Poor financially, but very rich with love and support. And it wasn't like I would try something and my parents would say, don't do that because it's not going to work. It was like, well, try it and see what works. Let's see what works.
So good.
So, I'm mowing yards when it was summertime or spring. And I was raking leaves during the fall. And I was shoveling snow in the winter. And I was, throughout all of that time, I got my first government job working for the government, getting taxes taken out, all these kind of things, when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
I was the weekend manager at a local Subway when I was 14 years old. Again, not because I enjoyed working and I loved Subway that much, but it was because I wanted to have the money.
Yep.
So I learned very early on, if I wanted something, I had to work hard for it. So anyway,
good.
I
that's brilliant. That makes so much sense to the person you are today, because you wear so many hats. There's so many modalities that you're trained in. Mm-hmm. You have such a plethora of knowledge and understanding around health and wellness. It makes so much sense when you have that upbringing where you were taught to not just be a niche person, that you can learn many things and become an expert in many things if you want to. Like, my goodness, to have that kind of support from the beginning. No wonder you're a fireball now.
Yeah.
It started young. That makes so much sense. So in that process of growing up, you've started learning wellness and health, and you started getting really immersed in this world. How did Pulse come into your story?
Okay. So we're really fast forwarding now, right?
Okay.
Because even through my high school and eventually going to college, I started playing basketball at a very high level, like throughout high school, and then I went on to play college. Well, I guess during my college career is when I first started getting like major injuries. So, for instance, I started to get plantar fasciitis, which I didn't know what that was back then, but I noticed I was getting heel pain and feet pain, and then I broke my wrist during a basketball game. My dad happened to be there at that game, and thankfully, because where we were, they didn't have the best staff to like take care of that. But my dad was there, and he was in EMT, so he knew what to do, which was kind of great. But like from that moment, I started to understand, okay, I broke my wrist in college. I broke my knuckle in college. Funny story behind that, but we'll pass on that. And I started to get all these little injuries. And so I started to develop a good relationship with the trainers on the teams, like the college teams, both in the junior college I was at and at the university that I was at. And then anytime I would have to go to the bone specialist or the bone and joint specialist, the different hospitals, the different doctors to do MRIs and x-rays, I started to develop a relationship with them. Basically, my whole life, I've been one to always want to build community. And I'm such a curious person that I love to ask questions, not because I'm challenging anyone, but because I want to have a better understanding, which comes back to that faith thing we were talking about, right? And so once I started to develop all of this understanding around how the body works and how people can optimize their health and wellness, I started to then explore more tools that are out there in the world. And when I became a trainer, which I first started off with just having, the weekend certification you get online, but then I eventually wanted to do modeling and acting after I finished playing basketball and my college career was over. I realized I probably wasn't going to go professional. So I then decided, okay, what else do I want to do in life? Well, during college, I had a photography course that I took, and I realized that I kind of have a knack for being in front of the camera because I did all the work behind the camera, like learning how to run a radio program, learning how to film. So I did all these classes. I learned how to edit. This was all before social media.
You've worn so many hats.
Very many. And then I was like, well, maybe I can do something with this. And again, this was before social media. So I said, okay, I got my first laptop ever. And I decided to take a bunch of magazines from Walmart, the local Walmart. And I got all the fitness magazines and all the, the cool magazines that I looked into. And, I thought I had a pretty good body because I was working at GNC part-time and I knew how to train myself. I was looking into supplements and I was like, look, what harm would it be if I just reached out to all the different people I could reach out to at these different magazines, send them some of my photos, let them know that I'm this kid from Oklahoma who wants to branch out and go forth and multiply. And let's see if they get back to me. And a few of them did. That prompted my first visit to New York because I really never had any desire to be in New York necessarily. I just knew I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to experience more than what I had been experiencing. And a group from Rodale and Men's Health got back to me, and I took a visit. The moment that I stepped foot into New York, almost immediately I knew no matter what, this is what I want to do. It wasn't like I wanted to live in New York. I just knew that I wanted to be challenged in that way because I knew that would take me to the next level because everyone in New York was doing something. They didn't care who I was. I was a small fish in a huge ocean, whereas that was in New York. But then in Oklahoma, I was kind of like a big fish in a small pond, right? I felt like I had maxed out, at least to a certain degree. And so when I was in New York, I'm like, wow, there's all these different things. So what am I going to do? So I tried the modeling thing out and it was okay. And then it morphed into acting and that was cool because I was familiar with that. And then in order for me to kind of stay in shape, to still look good and fit, I wanted to do what I knew best, which was to play basketball. So I joined, back then it was Reebok Sports Club, joined that gym and they had a men's league. So I played in the men's league. That was amazing because all these people who didn't know who I was, all of a sudden, they took a liking to me because they wanted me to play on their team. So they would pay for my membership. They would pay for my fees to join the league. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is cool. And then I ended up getting MVP of the league. Our team won the championship. Wow. I'm setting records. And this is a guy, they're like, dude, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Oklahoma. Where did you play? You should have been playing pro. I'm like, I agree with you, but I was a late bloomer, but it's not quite that easy. And so long story short, I ended up getting a couple gigs to play overseas. So I played in Qatar and I played in Cancun, Mexico. And that was another opportunity to meet other trainers and other people, other ways of training the body. And then, so fast forward, I get an opportunity to work with some people they had all these cool devices. And Pam Gold is one of the first people that I got a chance to try Pulse.
Okay.
And she had one of the first biohacking studios in New York. And I remember sitting on this chair and I'm like, I understood what PEMF was because I knew what grounding was. Grounding was my first foray into the world of health and wellness, if you will, because I understood that, right? Taking off your shoes and socks and being out in nature. Okay, great. But then I started to get grounding devices, but you can't tangibly feel that unless you're really sensitive.
Yeah.
And so when I sat on the Pulse chair, for the first time, my mind was blown in the best of ways. And I thought, oh, I need to. First question was, how can I get one? How much is it?
Come
She
on.
told me the price, and I'm like, well, maybe I can like use it every once in a while, and like maybe we can work together. And so we started doing some things together, and then somehow, like, fast forward, a couple years after that, I was in an opportunity where I was working with a chiropractor who had the means to, because we partnered, right? I brought the fitness component to his practice, and he did the nutrition, and because he was a chiropractor by trade, but he also did nutrition and he had all these other tools. Well, he was coming to me for advice on what's the next toy to get, right? I say toy because that's how it was brought up, right?
Right.
What's the next gadget? He would always call me, Josh, what gadget should I get? I'm looking at these 3 devices. Which one do you think? So I was becoming like this voice in the world of biohacking as like the go-to voice because I've most likely vetted it, right?
Right.
And so first thing I said to him, you got to get the XL Pro. You got to get the XL Pro set up, like get the whole thing, and let's see what happens, because I think this is a really interesting way for you to build your business out. So not only was it for health and wellness of his people and my people that were coming in to recover, but his people were dealing with some pretty serious issues, right? And so how do we get the most out of it? Plus, you can put a client on that and then go and work with someone else, right? Now, obviously, we want to hold people and be there for them because there's a lot that comes up during these sessions.
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
But when you've got someone who's used to it, now that's
After a few sessions,
that's
you can
making money for you.
They can drive it themselves.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. They can drive the car by themselves, so to speak. And so that's another way to like maximize your business if you want to look at it at that perspective. If you're doing it for yourself at home, then spend as much time as you can trying to like clean the slate. Start, build that foundation for optimal healing.
Yes.
And so, anyway,
you bring up a good point though, because I think a lot of business owners need to understand that. I mean, like even my kids, they pulse themselves. Yeah. I've trained them. A child can do that. The beauty of this modality is that anyone can pick this up. Yes, there's nuances. Yes, there's tips and tricks. You can pick those up along the way too, but it really is so simple so that business owners aren't being bogged down every pulsing session to have to attend to someone.
Bingo.
They can really empower them to turn the dials themselves, find what feels right for their body, for their body's chemistry. Every frequency is going to feel different for everyone. So it really gives them permission to explore and experiment on their own. And it's fun. And you're going to get good results even in the exploration and experimentation. Whereas there's a lot of things out there you can't say that about, where you're going to get some good results regardless just by sitting in a chair. But then you get to play around with it. I want to pause that for a second because I just felt this stirring on the inside. I know so many people who are watching who don't have that drive because maybe they felt like they never were given permission to be as wild and free as you've been able to be, to jump into new things and try new experiences. Maybe they've felt boxed in by things that were told them while they were kids or by teachers or parents or whatnot. I would love for you to just take a moment, since you have that fire in you. What would you say to that person and giving them permission to branch out and do those things that you're talking about, trying new things, experimenting, sending a letter to a magazine? Like, who does that? Josh Holland does that. So whatever's in you, Josh, could you just release that over our viewers?
I would absolutely say, first of all, well said for pointing that out. And I would just say almost exactly what you said, which is just go out and do it, right? Like, go and do whatever you feel you can do. Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be sitting on this couch with you right now. I wouldn't be where I am today. Seriously. Like, if I listened to all the people that told me, Josh, stay in your lane. If I stayed in my lane, I would still be in that lane.
and it's okay to have a broad lane if you're a specialist.
Yeah, because for me, like, I think growing up, seeing my parents do the many things that they did and to watch them be successful just gave me the permission, as you said, to try it as well. And when I was growing up, I'm 44 years old, so I can say back in the day when I was a kid, right? I was the kid that constantly explored being a kid, because when I was a kid, I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to worry about taking care of a family. I just had to worry about being a kid. And what did that look like to me? I was the kid that was using clothespins with baseball cards or playing cards on the spoke of my bicycle, so it sounded like a motorcycle. Right? That's what I was doing.
Yep.
I was the same kid that was also building ramps, trying to jump off of it with the skateboards, and end up hurting myself. It was the first time I broke my ankle. I broke my ankle because I was popping wheelies on a ramp with a bike, right? Well, and so some people will look at that and say, see, you shouldn't be playing around like that. No. That gave me the first example of what I say now, today, modern shoes are like casts for our feet.
Wow.
Well, I can explain that because I went through that.
Yes.
Because when I had to cast my foot, I got this true understanding. Mind you, I walked hobbled. I mean, I used the bike, right?
As a crutch.
Right. Hobbled on my other foot, go into the house, and I saw my dad act like nothing was a problem. It was as if there was no issue, because he was an EMT. Mm-hmm. So he knew in that moment that it probably wouldn't do me any better if he freaked out.
It's a good dad.
Right?
That's a really good dad.
So now we go to the doctor, put on this cast. It's the first time I'm getting this cast on myself. I didn't know what a cast was. But then, now I still want to be this rambunctious kid. I feel myself healing, so I want to rush the process. I learned not to rush the process.
Yep.
I also learned how to be very creative, and if I had an itch in my foot, how to use a hanger to kind of dig in there. So now I'm finding anything that I could use to get inside there. Well,
problem-solving skills are being exercised and developing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now let's think about, how could I even get something in there? Because usually when they do a cast, it's pretty tight. Mm-hmm. Well, because my bones and my muscles were atrophying. Right?
So you were losing the space.
So I'm understanding this, right? Then I finally get the cast to come off. Now you think I'm that kid that just sits there and lets them cut onto the cast and then just say, okay, you're good to go? No. I want to know how, why. What did you use to make the cast? What is it made out of? Oh, that's similar to the project that I did in school with the balloon and the casting around the balloon. Oh, well, what are you using to cut it? And why is it not burning me or cutting me? Oh, it's because it's got this on it. Okay, this is me. I'm this kid that's just so fascinated by all of this stuff. And then wow, it smells so bad, right? Because you can't clean it, okay? And then you look at it and it doesn't look anything like my other foot. Well, what am I gonna do about that? I gotta rehab it. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you rehab it? Get out there and move. So now when I'm explaining to people about why modern shoes are like casts, it weakens the foot. And so if you're choosing to do that, because when you break a joint in the body, you need to immobilize it for a period of time, right? 6 to 8 weeks, we know that's kind of the standard. But then what do you do after that? You rehab it, you make it stronger. Hopefully that the bone is set in the right place and then it becomes as strong as it was before, if not stronger. Mm-hmm. Well, when we talk about that, when I align that to modern shoes, at what point do we do the rehab? Right?
Hello. That's a great
what I'm
question.
Going for. That's what I'm going for. And I can talk about that because it's my authentic experience.
Yes. And I want to dive into foot and toe health in just a second. But first, I want to read a quote that you posted on a recent video on social media. And I think this ties into that, getting into a mindset where you have permission to try new things, to grow and expand, break out of your former confines and defy limits and come back stronger and into a newer, exactly, a new state. So you said on social media, I love this quote, if you don't know what to pursue in life right now, pursue yourself. Pursue becoming the healthiest, happiest, most confident version of yourself then the right path will reveal itself. And I think it's just so true. You have to discover yourself first if you're going to love others well, right? You can't give what you don't have first.
Yeah.
And so I know it's only a piece of the destiny convergence picture, if I can use that term. But I'd love to hear how you're doing this in your own personal life. Like, how do you fuel that fire, whether you're using Pulse or anything? How do you pursue yourself in a way where you're growing and expanding?
I think that's the true definition of biohacking or health optimization
Or self-care. Like, that's how self-care should be, right?
Yeah. There's many terms for it. People want to always like create labels for it, but at the end of the day, it's personal development, self-care, biohacking, health optimization, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it's easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing, and we judge and compare ourselves to what the next person is doing. But like you just called out with that quote, if you're not sure of what to pursue, well, pursue the one thing that we do have control over, and that's ourselves. But a lot of times we give away our autonomy to everything else, the tools, the government, the
want to be liked,
Yeah.
and we assimilate into something instead of being true to ourselves.
Yeah. So I'll piggyback on that quote with one of my own quotes, and it's a mission statement for what I believe in life and how I kind of move through life. And the quote goes like this: "Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time." So there's a lot of nuances in that, right? And for me, I live it truthfully, because there's a word in between those two sentences, like that starts the second sentence, which is if you want to change your body and mind. That if is really powerful, because I'm not saying to anyone that you need to change anything, because you might be the happiest person, the healthiest person. You might be living life exactly how you think you should. Cool. Go on, keep doing your thing, right? Because our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. So if you want to make a change, you want to lose weight, you want to gain weight. If you want to make a change, well, here's some things you should do, and that starts with changing what you do most of the time. So if you feel like you have a habit of always eating dessert after every meal, if you want to change your body and mind, well, maybe don't have a dessert after every meal. It could be that simple, because a person has gotten to where they are based on what they do most of the time.
Yep.
Period. For me, it's very simple. So I like to try to simplify
I prefer
things.
simple. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I prefer simplification.
Yeah. That's why I call my podcast Simply Walk the Talk. Because it can be simple. It's not easy. It's not always easy.
That's right.
But it's very simple. Life is very, very simple. We just make it much more difficult.
Yeah,
Because
that's 100% true.
if you think about the universe, at the end of the day, we are but a speck. We are such a speck. But we make our problems, we make our life so much more grandiose than what it actually is. At the end of the day,
Which fuels our excuses.
Yeah.
And keeps us in those cycles and
Yeah.
those stuck patterns.
yeah.
No, that's a great point. Simplification. So uncovering those excuses, uncovering those hindrances and those blocks so that you can pursue who you really are. And hopefully by the end of this episode, everyone's going to feel like they have permission to step into this passion like you carry on a daily basis, which I love. In fact, yesterday we were working on a number of shoots for some upcoming content that we're going to be releasing on social media. And we were talking about some foot and toe health. And this was a subject that I wanted to expand on in this particular interview, because you wrote an article called The Overlooked Foundation. And I think we're moving in the right direction. It's slow going, but I think as in general, we're moving in the correct direction. But I still see the majority of training out there focused on like the mirror muscles and what can be seen on social media. And so it's the overlooked and the unseen. It's those minute specifics that sometimes require more attention, especially as we get older. So what are some things that we can start doing like right away to start protecting our lower extremities and our foot and toe health?
So what you're talking about is the foundation, right? Hence the title of
That
the
makes so
article
much
is
sense.
the
Yes, why you
Overlooked
titled it
Foundation.
that.
So when we look at it as simplified or broken down as lower extremities, then it could be like any other program out there. We'll say, okay, this week I'm going to focus on legs, or today's workout's going to be lower body, tomorrow's workout is upper body, and that I think is an oversimplification.
Okay.
When we say, not that how you ask the question is wrong or by any means, but I want the person out there to understand it the way at least I see it for a moment, right? And if we call it the foundation, then it gives it much more power, right? Because if we're talking about building the foundation of this house, then we want it to be as sound as possible. And people have heard this till the end of the day, and they will continue to hear this. But you want to build on the strongest foundation. So if we can start identifying our bodies as what is the foundation, it is our feet. The feet are our foundation, period. It's what literally gets us through life, literally and figuratively, right? Our feet carry us through life. So it makes sense to me to focus on there first and foremost, right?
Yep.
Because the moment we start to lose mobility or movement, the moment things start to regress or they start to atrophy. It's a use it or lose it concept. And so how should we expect to improve on all things health and wellness and longevity, what I call health optimization? How do we expect that to improve if we're not focusing on one of the most important pieces of the body, and that's our foundation? So I wrote that article a couple years ago because when I was at the Biohacking conference that one was in Dallas, I believe, that year, I walked away from that seeing like all of these super talented and knowledgeable, experiential hackers out there, biohackers and experts in the field. But when I walked the floor, I noticed that there wasn't much around the foundation. I mean, there was a foundational component around gut health. Great, cool. Right? That's very important.
Very important.
It's, there's people who are focusing on how to train the body, how to train the muscles, how to focus the brain, how to, recover. All of these are great. But we wouldn't have even been able to get to that conference had we not walked there.
That's a great point.
Right?
Yep.
And so, it's like we should be focusing on it. And Vivo Barefoot is the only group that is there. Now, obviously, I work for the company, I work for the brand, and so it's probably understandable that I'm going to be talking about that and a little bit biased.
Yep.
But what about before I worked for Vivo Barefoot? Because I've only been working for the brand for the last 2.5 years, but I've been a part of Vivo Barefoot since 2010, 2009, 2010, right? And so that means they've been around for a while. And it was probably working with Vivo Barefoot, getting the Barefoot Coach certification through their coaching program. That was one of the most in-depth programs that I had ever gone through.
Which is wild to think about a shoe company providing an in-depth training around feet. Like that's just unheard of. I love it.
So like I mentioned to you about foundation versus lower extremities.
Yep.
I'll say this now, the brand considers themselves and puts themselves out there as a lifestyle brand as opposed to a shoe company.
And
right?
Rightly so.
Rightly so.
With
Why?
how much they've been investing. Yep.
Exactly. Because even though I work for the brand, they've heard me say this, and many people around me have mentioned this. You will very rarely hear me talking about the price of a pair of shoes or, if people ask me about the differences between, the tread on this one and the flexibility of another one, okay, maybe I'll talk about that. But my whole goal is to let the foot be a foot. And we always say this, the best technology to go into a shoe is the human foot. That's the focus then. So
That's very good.
when I lead, for the U.S. entity of Vivo Barefoot, I lead coaching and education for the brand. And it's an education-led company. So that it happens to be one of the most important pieces. So then I have a huge responsibility, and I treat it as such. So I want to make sure that everybody I interact with at least understands, first and foremost, don't worry about the cost of it. Don't worry about the look of it. Don't worry about anything. Just take off your shoes and socks. Start there. And then when you can't be barefoot, be Vivo barefoot.
I love
right?
that. Yes.
Because it's like, I understand that it can be expensive, but that goes back to what is the value.
So can health issues. Can the issues that stem from not taking care of your feet. Right. That's more expensive.
Absolutely. And it's like, maybe a person hadn't put enough value into that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I get it. So I don't have to worry about that piece. How about just taking off your shoes and socks? Now, what's interesting with this moment right now, we're in a house, and I talk about this a lot. I loathe at the fact that people wear shoes indoors, right? I have my shoes on, right? Okay, it's not my house, right?
We have a rule in my house too,
right?
Shoes off at the door. And
I always say, like, why were shoes created in the first place? And if we think way back to when shoes were created, back in the Serengeti or in Africa, the shoes were created to protect against the elements. Elements being heat or cold or sharp objects, right? But then modern society also has that component, that foundational component of protecting against the elements.
Yep.
But then they start to add in all this technology. And remember, the best technology to go into a shoe is the human foot itself. Mm-hmm. So why would you then limit or restrict or try to control how the foot moves? You want the foot to be a foot. So you want a shoe that is wide, thin, and flexible. So if you don't put enough value into the brand of Vivo Barefoot, that's okay. Just go out and find the widest shoe you can find, the thinnest shoe you can find without a heel lift, and the most flexible of shoes. And if you start there, you'll eventually find your way back to Vivo Barefoot, because they have been doing it for, I think, the founders of Vivo Barefoot, Galahad Clark and Asher Clark, I think they're, if I'm getting this right, 7th generation cobblers or shoemakers, right? Wow. So they've been doing this for a while. And it's like, if you can think about like how shoes have gotten from the, wrapped hide with, some kind of wrapping on a foot that just protected against the elements, to where we are today with these thick soles and narrow toe boxes and very rigid, it's no surprise that our feet are being limited, which then limit our ankles, limit our calves, limit our knees, limit our hips, limit our backs. Now we've got all these problems. We're sitting at desks for long periods of time. We've gotten so far away from how we were built and designed to move to what we are today.